Welcome to the School of Professional Design. I'm Donnie Tuttle, your guide to aligning your work with your unique professional design. I'm a professor at the School of Professional Design, and I am here to help you to unlock the professional life that you love and loves you back. So let's get out of the grind and play by your design.
Can I take you there?
In this edition of the School of Professional Design audio experience, we're talking about the sage. Now, if you are the sage personality, listen up. I'm going to share with you some things about you. Maybe you didn't know about yourself. Maybe I'm going to talk about you to your face, not behind your back. And it's going to be fun. You're going to find some ways to make sure that your success plan is connected to your most native operating system. So sages, listen up. If you're not a sage, but you deal with a sage, maybe you are partnered with one in business or in life, I'm going to share with you some ways that you are going to be more able to connect, communicate, and influence sages. That's right. We're going to take a look behind all of the circuitry so you can get into the heart and mind of these super intelligent people. So what is a sage? In the old days, a sage was that wise person that you would go to for advice. For Carl Jung, he wanted to include that because there are a select group of people that when they see themselves winning, they mainly see themselves winning by outsmarting other people. The sage is oftentimes the smartest person in the room. They are of the group of what we would call strategists. They give order and structure to things. So in work, it's natural for them to organize or bring structure. In a home, they typically thrive with systems and they create systems. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. You'll come to really appreciate strategists and why they are needed in anybody's life. We all need strategists because we all need order. Because here's the truth. If you don't have structure and order, you're inviting chaos. And chaos can cost you your dreams. The sage is wise and knowledgeable. They seek to understand the world through analysis and through learning and through insight. They're driven by a desire for truth, for pure understanding. They use wisdom and knowledge as a guide to inform their decisions. These are the ones probably putting together all of the checklists that you ever see in the back of any buyer's brochure with all of the features and benefits of any product, probably put together by a sage. Now, they're different than the other two strategists. The other two strategists are the ruler and the hero. And so I would say that they typically are going to be the more introverted of the strategist group. They are typically, their focus is on knowledge and wisdom, whereas a ruler is going to focus on control and authority. They're different than a hero, even though if you stir sage up, especially if you make it about whether or not they were right or wrong, if you stir a sage up, they can look like a confrontational hero. But they're different than a hero because the hero thrives on challenges. The hero thrives on conflict and taking action. The sage prefers to really stay in the background, if at all possible. So the ruler is looking to control people. They want to be in front. They want that structure. Like, again, the sage can swing either of these ways. The sage can jump into that ruler role or jump into the hero role, but their most native place is that they are finding knowledge. They're sometimes sharing knowledge. They're giving structure. So all of these three strategists all share a focus on planning and organization and achieving long-term goals, but it is the strategist, or I'm sorry, it is the sage that really gets it down, put like processes and systems and things in order and the structure that they're willing to look deeper into things than almost anyone around. You've ever heard of the expression, oh, like, who's the smartest person in the room? Typically, it's the sage. And the sage, they typically know it. They know it. The tendencies of a sage, again, analytical, thoughtful. Sometimes they can seem very fast with their thoughts, almost blurting out things in a way that's not, it's just not connected with warmth or kindness. They tell it like it is, usually. Or sometimes they want to tell it like it is. They lock it up inside, and if they're the more introverted type of sage, they will lock it away until it blows up. Sometimes some people who are they're used to doing the nice thing or the kind thing. If they're a sage, that's actually can be very frustrating, especially if you're around scenarios that you feel like are incorrect and you could improve. Sage prefers reflection and learning over action. I'm just going to put this out there. We'll get to some ways that you can manage yourself and help yourself. But one thing I can tell you, if you're a sage, you need deadlines. And so there are, just like you provide an outline and an order and a structure for rules and laws and words and numbers and facts and figures, there's a social structure that maybe other people, you should be sourcing from other people. And one of those is a deadline. So that if people are counting on you for something, you're much more likely to come to the best possible decision rather than the best decision. That's going to be something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, which is perfection. But I want you to think of a sage like the wise old owl, perched high in a tree, observing the world with a keen eye, an analytical mind. They draw on a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer insights, and sometimes, to the lucky, guidance. And just like an owl sees through the darkness, the sage uses their wisdom to illuminate complex situations, providing clarity and understanding for those who seek their counsel. Examples of sages: the great Albert Einstein, whose profound insights have been massive contributions to science and society. Or how about Yoda, the wise and powerful Jedi Master?
Take you to whom I will.
Maybe not so silly. Sages are known to be dry in humor, and if they have humor, oftentimes it is that very dry humor. They may be like Warren Buffett, the renowned and thoughtful analytical investor that maybe isn't the sexiest, but has absolutely shown himself to be one of the smartest. In terms of tendencies, of course, we've discussed that analytical, that thoughtful, that deep thinker, the driven by the desire for truth and understanding. They're going to typically reflect instead of take action. Oftentimes, unless pressed, they're not typically going to be the most courageous. These are the ones that are, you're making the laws, you're coming up with the standard operating procedures and processes, you are editing what others have put out, you are correcting the mistakes of others, you clean up some of the sloppy work, in some cases, of what others have brought to you. And sometimes that may bother you. Your motivation is to gain and share knowledge. And you're a good teacher. You're a good trainer. You are a good mentor. as long as people are willing to see truth the way that you do. Guiding others through wisdom, guiding others through truth, guiding others through knowledge is the big deal for you. I think trust and truth is one of the languages of the sage. And that means that if a sage perceives you to tell the truth and always tell the truth, so help you God, and that's what they've seen, they will believe you and they pretty much will go where you go. But when you break the trust of a sage, oh, heaven help you, try to get that back. And if you do break the trust, if you do something that goes against what the sage's perception was that you were going to do, you better be the first one to reveal that this is what you did. You better, you really do, because trust is the language of the sage, and it's slowly given, but it is deeply given. And that's why sages tend to, when they make friends, they have few friends because they trust few. So they have few friends, and but they're strong in those scenarios. All of the ones who are strategists, I think, can seem like loners at times. And with a sage, maybe they feel and seem like they're alone with their books. Oftentimes, they can be misunderstood as not liking others. They can be seen as, I don't want to say nerdy, but definitely nerdy, right? Boring, because you see all of the details, all of them. And the reason everyone keeps messing them up is because they're either not careful, or they're bored, or it just doesn't feel important to them, but to you it's important. And so when you share deeply with the details, be ready to lose people. That's okay sometimes, but also I think if you're aware, you can adjust from that. The fears of the sage, listen, we all have them, right? The sage doesn't want to be seen as ignorant or uninformed. The sage hates being wrong. They hate being wrong. They're like, I watched all of this. How possibly could I be wrong? And it's the worst torture. They hate making decisions without sufficient information. And so if you let a sage think about something, they'll never stop. They could be students for life. As a matter of fact, they are students for life. But if you're trying to decide on a smartphone, for instance, the sage is either going to go with what they've always trusted, or they're going to research. They're going to overtime research on a simple purchase such as a phone. They are afraid of just misunderstanding, misinterpreting information. And so I would say if you're talking to a sage, be clear. Be clear. Make sure that they understand exactly what you're saying. As a sage, I will say your communication style, you tend to give all of the facts. And I would say if you haven't already, get good with a filter. Notice when other people are glazing over. I know that might be hard for you to do. Develop a sensitivity as to when others are paying attention to you. And when you notice that, I want you to slow down and ask yourself if you're sharing too much info. Are you oversharing? Are you giving too many details? Are you giving not enough emotion? So sages can typically, when they communicate, they might sound like the end of a drug commercial, where they talk really fast and tell you everything that you'd have. Headaches, heartaches, nausea, all of these things. A sage is so smart, they're faster than their own words. And so they're trying to talk fast enough to keep up with the intelligence of their words. But as a sage, there is a time to use that. So use it when you're trying to show, in brief spurts, when you're trying to show exactly, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You can trust me. But don't use it when you're trying to connect with a human. Don't use it when you're trying to influence. Don't use it when you want other people to go where you're going. Slow down. Feel what you're saying. Okay. Some blind spots, now that we're on that, is you can be typically over-critical. You can be skeptical. That's what drives you to do all of the research. It's what drives you to observe and to notice. There is a critical eye. Some people might call it pessimism or negativity. And hey, maybe the shoe fits. If it does, go ahead and wear it. But I would also submit to you that this is also an asset because you see the things that are wrong. The problem is you see all the things that are wrong. And when you see all the things that are wrong, you have a hard time focusing on one thing. And so you fix all of it together. And you can typically, because you see all of these things, you can get overwhelmed. You can also lose sight of the vision. I would say that typically speaking, sages are not the best at vision. Really, none of the strategists are. But sages in particular, because what's going to happen, the way that vision works is you have to have a thought that's not connected to a reality. And if you were discussing vision with a sage, you might say, what if we had 1 million clients? And the sage is, we can't even handle the 135 that we have. And so they're going to bring all the problems. And sage, listen, bring the problems. We want the problems. It helps us. But you can't bring it into the first part of the vision process. You are a strategist, which means once we know the vision, plug your solutions into vision. Okay? Plug it into vision. Sometimes you can be detached from your emotions. Sometimes you don't come across as caring. And the truth is, maybe you don't even care. And so I would say cultivating that could be helpful for you. Avoiding analysis paralysis, overthinking, right? That can be something we can be aware of as a blind spot and just determine you're going to take action. And really, you should probably put up I don't know if it's John F. Kennedy or Teddy Roosevelt, but I think they both had a different version of the quote. Do what you can where you're at with what you got. Or the other one from, I think, Winston Churchill, where he said that action taken today in a sloppy way. I'm totally butchering this, but action taken today in a sloppy way is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. And so you've got to be able to balance the plan with action, especially if you're acting alone. If you can, work with people who have vision. If you can, work with people who are disposed to taking action and to seeing the positive side of things. If you can, okay. If you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to become all of those people for a time. Let's talk about some of the places where you might natively belong in a business. So strategic analysis and planning, obviously. Research and development, testing things out, breaking them, seeing if they work. I reached out to someone and asked him, hey, can you share this with your people? And he's like, yes, I will. I'll read every single thing that you just now sent me, and then I will share it. That guy, he's a sage. I had an open house recently, and a woman reached out to me. She said, would you like to know what word was misspelled on which slide? And I knew which one it was. There to get the sage who sees everything. And so that's what a sage does. I also feel like that a sage, especially if they have learned to feel, they learned to listen, not just hear, but to listen. They're really good at mentorship. They're good at giving advice. And again, the motivation to find real true knowledge is that great motivator. It's not that sages don't want money. We all want more. But a sage wins when they are free to explore deeply. And then not only to explore, so sage, you're not free to just go be a researcher. You should also provide a structure. So give us something practical to do with that. You are completely able to do that. A sage they can lean towards thinking of inventions but never doing them. They're not the best at on their own. Typically, they're not the best at starting. They are better at finishing than they are at starting, but oftentimes not even great at finishing. So a sage works best with you need others around you, sage. You just do. Okay. In terms of your time, you need to have time because you're a deep researcher. Have time for it. Give yourself time. That's your charge up time. Also, I would say if you are the introverted sage, which most of you are, don't plan a day or a week or a month where you're only always dealing with people. You need some alone time to recharge, my friend. Okay? Balance reflection with actionable steps and give yourself deadlines to avoid over-analysis. In terms of time, I would say having a whiteboard time where you plan out what's going to happen. Get it done. Give yourself I like to put you on a timer. Give yourself an hour or two. And then just determine that you have to be done no matter what. Even if you're not done, you're done. Okay? Plan out your week. Don't just schedule your week. Plan it out. With relationships, find someone, anytime you find a key insight, find someone you can communicate with. And it could even be, you can write it down. You can put it on a podcast like I'm doing now. Or you can have a confidant. You can have a mentee you're working with. Be open to emotional and interpersonal dynamics. People are going to be different. And you probably, if it's you mixed with maybe a leader or the ruler, you are a ruler, you probably sometimes look around at the room and say, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by idiots. And being able to still give grace and love towards those people is going to be a key for you. And then being the catalyst that causes growth and learning in your community, understanding not everyone's going to be as thirsty for knowledge as you, but you might be the person that can bring that to other people. Maybe you should be teaching occasionally to the group, but if you feel like you could do it in 30 minutes, find a way to do it in 15 without going fast. Talk slowly, sages. When you talk fast, you're not saying more. You are losing us. Find a way to work from spreadsheets. Okay? You need those. It's cool. You be a freak in the sheets. Go do that, okay? Spreadsheets for sure. You need to be managing your time with as a list of goals and objectives, kind of like a ruler would, kind of like a hero would. All three of you guys really have that in common. Be open to adjusting your plans with new information, but also don't be super. You're not predisposed towards change, but also don't reroute your plans too quickly. Okay, commit to a certain time before you change. Always get, I think if you're communicating to a sage, always talk about how, hey, do a T chart. I think sages love the T chart, the Ben Franklin chart, whatever you want to call it, the pluses and minuses of a situation. They think that way, you think that way, that's cool. Do it. And if at all possible, come to us if you're selling to them or if you're having a solution that feels like it was backed by research is always good. Let's see. Let's talk about, I guess the one thing I would say in terms of you feeling like you're connected to your work there, sage, is that having a focus on the impact that your knowledge and your insights will have on others. Let yourself be seen. See yourself as the researcher, as the scientist, as the smart guy, as the Oppenheimer, as the one that figures it out. Celebrate when you have a discovery or a breakthrough or an aha moment. Keep a journal with you. Keep a little pocket-sized journal in your pocket so that you can write those down. I've actually been journaling. If you can do a journal in your phone. You can record in your phone, but like when you have an aha moment, be ready to write it down. Okay, and then celebrate it. Be happy that you did that because we need you. We needed that. Okay? If you have a sage in your midst, understand that they may not speak up. They may not seek the spotlight, but boy, oh boy, give it to them. Give them credit when they have done something really good. A few last things I would say if you're a sage, like you want to give practical applications to whatever it is that you're bringing. So if you're giving us knowledge, tell us what to do with it, okay? Don't think that we just can figure it out. Be willing to adapt. Be willing to, adapt. Be willing to let the rest of us try it out, try it on, spit it out, all of those things. And if we reject it, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just might mean you need to work on how you influence people, because you really probably ought to balance your analytical thinking with empathy, with understanding. If you were a sage in my company, I would want to put you in a place where you're leading projects that require deep analysis, strategic planning. I would want you to develop insights with someone who was trying to innovate something, probably on a team. I'd want you to find all the reasons why it's wrong, maybe poke holes in it, as they say, and use your wisdom. I'd want you to use your wisdom to mentor some other people along the way. And so if that's you, I want to know from you, what adjustments will you make? What can you make? What will you do? Okay. If you're working with a strategist, just remember they just don't want to be wrong. And so if you see that they are wrong, be gentle with them even if they are being abrasive with you, be gentle as you're showing them that they may be wrong. If you're dealing with a sage, ask questions before you give answers, because a sage probably already knows the answer. And so if you give them the questions, it will allow them to feel like they have come to that as well. And be willing to take the time for a sage to think through and to list out the pluses and minuses of something. And I can tell you this, that when a sage comes to a conclusion, they lock into it like a pit bull. Okay, so that's what you want. So it might take some patience if you're working with a sage. You may feel like they don't care. Just be aware of some of these tendencies that they have and help them to develop along the way as well. And so hopefully this one has helped you to become a little bit better at being that form-giving, form-finding strategist, this awesome person, wise and brilliant, called the Sage. That's going to do it for this episode. My hope is to encourage you to look, to think. You be you, my friend. Take that gift, shine it up, bring it to the world, because we need your magic. If you love this, if you like this, if you feel like you want to join a part of this, you can go over to schoolofprofessionaldesign.com and you can join us, where we have regular classes, coaching, and meetings and materials to help you stay on purpose and to live and work by your design. See you on the next episode.